Welcome to the Burn Boot Camp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Boot Camp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Hey, what is up, Burn Nation? And welcome back to the Burn Boot Camp podcast. We are here for another episode with our HQ crew. I got Morgan in the house as always, co-host Bryce. He is here. What would you say, Bryce? A couple times a month?
Whenever you let me.
Whenever you're in town as the VP of our HQ gyms. He's flying out to Salt Lake City, left and right, Florida, Texas. And we got Justin in the building today. I'm going to let Justin introduce himself in a minute. You guys, great episode. Listen, I hope all of them are great, but this one's going to be even better. Why? Because Pumpkin Spice is here. Oh, yeah, baby. We know National Pumpkin Spice Day is today, so we're going to talk about that. But listen, I'm doing great. So much fun in the gym right now. I haven't had this much fun in the gym in a very long time. You go through waves, right? You go, you get to those points where you feel like you might start to burn out. Well, maybe, you just need to kind of reset a goal or rethink your strategy. And then you get back up eventually to where, hey, going 6 days a week, get all my protein and eating good on a mission, feels good to be on a mission. But it wouldn't feel good if there wasn't for those times where you didn't feel so good. That contrast is a beautiful thing. So I'm grateful for the contrast in my fitness, my health journey today. And I've been working on the fitness product just a lot with Matt Morris, diving really, really deep, trying to make it happen for the trainers out there, Burn Nation. Morgan, I would like to hear how you're feeling.
Well, I'm feeling sore as ever in the gym. So thanks for that, Matt and Devin. But I'm also having fun and getting to be more consistent throughout all of my traveling. So thanks to Burn On Demand, thanks to the fun that we're having in the gym, the challenge, all of that fun stuff. But it's October. It's your birthday month, Devin.
37 this month. October 15th, by the way, is my birthday. And if you want to get me a birthday present, all you have to do is you have to leave a review on Apple Podcasts.
There you go.
Like my Venmo is.
That's all I want, all right, for my birthday. And then text 36 other people. Then there's 37 reviews per person. Now we're cooking.
There you go. 37. Yeah, you're old. But no, I love October because it leads right into November, which is my birthday month and my favorite time of the year. So excited to be here. Justin, Bryce, glad you're on with us. We got a fun show planned for us today. Lots to talk about. Pumpkin Spice, and everything nice. I feel like it's been out since August, though, so I'm getting a little sick of Pumpkin Spice, if I'm being really honest here. But hey, we still have the protein and a nice little healthy swap.
I feel like we, as producers of a product that gets released in the fall called Pumpkin Spice, we get way more exposure throughout the year to like testing and innovating and thinking about it.
We're on it early.
We're on it early, so we feel like we're in Pumpkin Spice season.
I feel like every year it gets introduced at Starbucks, like earlier and earlier. I think August 30th it was out. But I haven't had it. So, anyways,
Christmas ads in July, right?
Glad to be here. All right, Bryce, kicking it to you.
Yeah, I mean, you guys touched on it. It's just a great time of year. I don't know if it's,
football,
in the gym, it's like, it's busy. We're coming off fall promo. The energy is big. There's a lot of people in the gym. And also, Devin, you touched on it. You do go through some ups and downs. And, it always kicks in for me in the summer. You just kind of like, you hit that like natural motivation. It's just, it's starting to get nice out. And for me, you guys know what's big in November. What comes in November every year for us?
Athlete games.
Yes, that's
that's October.
Fire Club. So usually we're somewhere tropical, and that's always a little time where you're like, hey, let me kick it into gear here. Let me get motivated. So I'm in that mode, been hitting camps, and Devin, like you said, a lot of travel. Travel's been picking up, which is always nice because when you're on the road, especially, there's no excuse to, what do you have to do? You're working with your teams, and it's just go to the gym, work out with them. So it makes
especially when you work at the gym. Yeah, like you are.
Yeah,
you're there all the time.
Like that, and that is what you're doing there. Take camp with the team, and so it's always if you're getting away from it, sometimes that's a good thing for me to get back into it. It's just like, hey, you're here all day. It's just you in a hotel room, and when you're not here, you're just with the team in the gym. Like, just go to camp the whole time, and I always bring that back with me and just try to keep that momentum going. going. And then, the fall, you mentioned it, football time, and, all the pumpkin spice things, and the Lions are, they're going to have another good year this year. So probably only the second year I've ever been able to say that confidently, but I'm hopeful. So that's, I always look forward to that every year, and we are in it. It is here. So Justin, who's your team?
I know. I kind of cringed a little bit when you said the Lions. I'm a Packers fan,
Okay. I didn't know that when I wouldn't have asked.
Yeah, so that's the thing, I can hear it from you guys coming in, being from Michigan, and I'm from Wisconsin, so a little bit of rivalry there. But yeah, bleed cheese and Packers.
Bleed cheese.
Cheese curds.
Oh, I miss that so much.
I love the state of Wisconsin, by the way. It is truly the one state where the people there represent what the state's known for. Like, y'all truly love football, cheese, and beer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Those cheese curds, right? Too?
Yep.
Isn't
Cheese
that,
curds,
isn't that a thing?
Yep.
That's what I meant. Cheese curds, not cheese in general.
Yeah.
Cheese curds especially. Like, you hear that. It's like a stereotype, but
Well, a lot of
it's
people
true.
also-
Everybody loves it.
Yeah, and they also, I've had people come up to me and be like, oh, you guys have that cheese crud stuff, right? And I was like, similar enough, but yeah, that's about right.
That makes a lot of sense, though, because I know when we talk about culture, it's like, hey, shared language, shared things that you do, right? That's unique. And it's like, look, if you have an entire state that all is just aligned on cheese and beer and football, like, of course, you're just going to all be super cool and aligned and tight, so that makes a lot of sense.
So, Justin, we know where you're from, but I want everybody on the podcast today to get to know who you are, how you got to Burn. So give us your personal remarks, man. Tell us your journey, your story quickly, how you got here, and the man behind the myth from Wisconsin.
So I guess I'll just kind of go with starting with, I've been here now for going on 14 months. So I've been at Burn HQ for 14 months working with the real estate team, which has been awesome experience. Had a great, working with great teams, great departments, been loving every minute of it. So but before that, I actually came from a different background. My background is probably actually in sports medicine and orthopedics. So I still maintain my athletic training certification and licensure, but that's what I had done for about 10 years was working in the orthopedic realm and sports medicine, working on the fields with the athletes, dealing with their injuries,
It's a fun job.
Yeah, so, that's a lot of times, the question comes in like what do you do on a day to day? And I just would always tell people it was, when you see on TV, when you're watching a football game, when somebody goes down, they're the ones that run out there and they're dealing with the injury. So, so a lot of exposure to that and, dealing with their, from the initial evaluation diagnosis to, rehabilitation to return to play. That's kind of my bread and butter. So, I've always had that passion for, physical activity, staying physically active, that type of thing. And when, I got introduced to Burn, it was just, a perfect mesh coming in too. So it was actually really interesting that, while I was working as an athletic trainer in that world, I kind of put my fitness on the back burner, my health on the back burner, where I, before that I had really been, that was like my primary thing, strength training, working out, doing that. Then focusing my attention to other people's health and to, dealing with other people's rehab and that type of thing, I kind of, took a little bit of a furlough from my own. So, and then it was very nice to have that come back once I started back at, working at HQ to actually start, getting back into the grind and into that routine, which is something that I was dearly missing, and that was huge for me. And that's been something else like, another perk of the job for sure. Absolutely.
You definitely missed one of your key positions, and that's volunteer trainer for me, right? We have a lot of sessions going on, this is feeling a little tweaked, and that's much appreciated. And I do have a question for you. When there was an injury, did you sprint out onto the field? I mean, did you train for that? Because I've seen that play out many times, and the walk out to the injury just always was like, come on, you don't know what's going on out here. You got to get out there. Did you go out confidently?
You gotta. It's a happy medium, I guess. You don't want to get out there so fast that if you're freaking out, everybody's freaking out around you. So if you're watching it and you're seeing that somebody's going down with a neck injury or something, I'm up there quick. If it's something where that your athletes, your patients, they tend to go down, and you're like, okay, this is not an uncommon thing for this guy. You're gonna
okay. So there's a little bit of an art to it, right? You're aware of the energy
Bryce
you're bringing.
Had so many visits because you'd be that
you're
guy.
like, no, you're like, did he just get tackled and his ego hurts a little bit, so his ankle also hurts?
Yes,
yeah.
And that's more times than not that would be the case. So then they used to call it like the trainer trot. Kind of go out there real nice, and it's making it look like, oh, I'm getting out there fast enough. There's some sense of urgency, but hey, don't worry, we got it under control kind of thing. So,
that makes sense. So you're very intentional about the energy that you're bringing. I think what I would experience is maybe the students, and it's like I could smell the fear. Like they're like, what am I walking into here? And it's like, you got to get out there. You got to get out there with some confidence. But it sounds like there's different tools in your tool belt. It's good to know. I'm glad I learned that 10 years after it really mattered to me.
Well, we enjoy having you, and Morgan and I's executive assistant is Leslie, and you two come as a package. So it's so great to have you in the office.
Devin, it's also important to note that Justin is like Devin's handyman and has helped him put up his whiteboard.
Rehab my hamstring.
He's a jack of all trades.
Find territories for our franchise partners and future franchise partners to develop in. I will commend your hard work. You're one of the hardest working people I know. You're very resourceful. Morgan and I especially have always believed that resourcefulness is still a resource even when you have no other resources. So you embody that, and so we really enjoy having you at HQ.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, buddy. Give it up for Justin.
Let's go.
Okay, all right. So guys, we talk about protein so often on the podcast here, and we're going to keep talking about it because you need it, and you need at least 100 grams minimum. Okay. And then there's some nuances to this, but kind of the rule of thumb, generally speaking, is that, if you're 200 pounds, you want to shoot for about 200 grams of protein, okay? As long as your body mass index is kind of in check, although that's not the greatest stat. Sometimes if you're 200 pounds, but you have 50% body fat, you don't want to necessarily follow that, okay? So generally speaking, 100 grams of protein if you're 130, 135. 135 grams of protein. If you're 150, you get it, right? 150 grams. Just think about it that way. So where are you at? Take a quick audit in your head. Do you know where you're at? Morgan, do you know where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Where are you at right now in like the last week on average?
My goal for protein?
Goal versus actual versus budget.
140 is my goal.
Speaking your language, CEO.
Got you.
I don't get there every day, but when I plan it out, I'm there.
Okay.
So
And so you're going 1 gram per body pound?
No, I don't weigh 140 pounds.
No. I'm saying whatever you weigh, what I'm recommending to the people.
I go a little bit more than my body weight.
1.2?
1.2, yeah.
Okay, 1.1.
I actually don't have art and science to it. Just 140 was my goal.
Yeah, you see bodybuilders will go 2 grams per body pound. That's not necessary for normal people. 1.5 if you're training super hard, strength training 4 or 5 times a week to hypertrophy to failure. And then a gram for most of us, for most everyone, like 99% of people should just be at a gram per body pound. So
I feel like that's the safe bet though. It's
a
easy
safe
thing to
bet.
remember, right?
Yeah, easy to remember. Minimum 100 though. Because you can't be somebody who might be 4'11" or 5 foot and 96 pounds. You don't want to be deficient in protein. So you want to make sure that you have 100 grams. So we're going to provide ways for you to do that. All right. And we talked about it already. It's National Pumpkin Spice Day. So obviously that's an easy plug for talking about pumpkin spice and protein. The only way to celebrate is to make sure you have your protein in with pumpkin spice. Okay. We have this available in gym, by the way. So check out your gym. Morgan, it's available online on the store?
It is
It's
available
online on the store.
So we'll make sure we link it right in the show notes. You guys can go check it out. Make sure you have it for the full month of October and into November because, pumpkin's good all the fall season.
Do you think the gyms are going to be sold out or do we have stock? What do you think? Is it hit or miss?
Once it's out, it's out. So if you see it on your shelf when you're walking in the gym, I would definitely snag it. We do not have more.
Yeah, you got to grab it. And by the way that we set up our online store so everybody knows is that when you purchase anything online, we're a franchise organization. Your location actually gets credit for that. All right, so you're supporting your local community when you purchase Pumpkins Spice Afterburn this fall. And just join into the fun, okay? On Valentine's Day, it's love. We all love. That's what we do, right? On Christmas, we're all grateful, and that's what we do. So on Pumpkin Spice Day, we all get Afterburn Pumpkin Spice, and we get 100 grams of protein or more. Makes sense? Say yes.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Morgan, can you talk to us also about Burn On Demand? We have an exciting announcement for Burn On Demand, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's our 1-year anniversary. So, we launched this October 2nd, 2023. So we are officially 1 year in. We have added so much content to this platform, new categories, more content. There's more coming even this fall, this winter. So keep on the lookout. But that is available for you guys right now to try it out. And we also have a new annual option that you can pay for the entire year at a discounted rate, and you can celebrate yourself, So if you want to give Devin a birthday present, go buy yourself a Burn On Demand membership for the year. He would love that, because then you can follow him around. You can follow Matt around. You can hang out with me at kids camp. We've got yoga. We've got foam rolling. We have athlete game workouts on there. What are your guys' favorite categories on BOD?
I don't want you to judge me, but quick camps.
Quick camps.
Yes.
No, well, that's like our second popular category.
Yeah.
So I hear you.
They're hard, but it's also like there's a little bit
Vicious.
of it with, it's like, well, Bryce, why are you doing quick camps so much? But it's been an absolute game changer.
Couple
to
it
just
with a super finisher.
Yeah, good
and
call.
then you'll be good.
Yep. I hit some burst training with DK here and there just to hang out. If I haven't seen you in a bit, I'm just like, hey, let's kick it, and I'll throw you up on the TV.
I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna do more. Those were the initial launch videos, the 15 that are on there, and I'm not happy that they're like number 7 out of the most popular categories. So we're gonna fix that.
That
hey,
tracks.
do you have any pictures of your home gym on Instagram, by the way?
Me?
Yeah.
Burn Boot Camp Davidson?
Yeah.
Gosh.
He has a hodgepodge of all the Burn Boot Camp.
All the old
All the old
everything.
stuff.
Yep, some of it may have started in a dumpster at some point, but it's on the wall in the garage.
He hears the word construction, and he's the first
I'm
guy
there.
in there. Like,
I'm
what
there.
are you gonna do with that?
Yeah, just years and years of accumulation. It's a nice little setup, though. It's
Do you have any
definitely
pictures
branded.
on Instagram of it?
I don't think that I
All
do,
right.
but now I guess I have to now.
You
They
gotta
will be up.
Here's what I want
Yeah.
you to do. I want you to pin one to the top of your profile.
gosh.
Okay.
And then next time you're on the podcast, I'm going to have Tony Tone pull it up. and
You
he's
got it,
gonna-
boss.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then we're going to check it out. We're going to explore it.
Yeah, so we have a 7-day trial, like I mentioned. Go ahead and click the link in the show notes. You can give it a try. Let us know what you think. If you are postpartum also, or you're pregnant, this is a great app for you, because we have 2 categories on there with Ashley Hearn, who is specialized in pregnancy and post-pregnancy modifications, and just making sure that she gives you all those options 1 through 4th trimester. And then also we have pelvic floor. Dr. Amanda Fisher came on the app, and she has a lot of really great content to how to restore your pelvic floor after you've had babies. So just wanted to call that out. If you're listening and that may be you, I would encourage you to give it a try.
Yes.
All right. Happy
Yes.
1 year. to
Happy
Burn On
1 year. Burn On
Demand.
Demand.
Game changer.
Game changer on this very floor, in this very studio where we sit today.
Matt Morris walks on these hallowed grounds. Is that the right hallowed grounds right here?
Yeah.
That's Matt Morris's
sweats
house.
here.
Yeah.
I fanboyed a little bit when I came in this morning. I saw him. I was like, oh, Matt's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys.
Don't make his head any bigger.
Yeah. Well, I've known Big Head since we were like 12 years old, so that's it. He's always had a head
He
disproportionate.
does a great job. He does
But
a great job.
his body's bigger now, so he's been working out real hard for a real long
Well,
time.
It's not just the workouts,
to
but if you travel with them, the first time I went to Chipotle, sometimes people will be like, hey, double meat.
Yeah.
He goes, hey, 2 steak burritos. And so it took me a second to process that wasn't, hey, double steak. It was 2 burritos. And I said, hey, is that for later? Like, no, it's for right now.
Yeah.
And he sat down and he ate 2 burritos. So that's a little bit of the behind the scenes of what you see on this floor. That's what's fueling it.
Yeah, you got to eat, people. You got to,
Yeah.
and we practice what we preach. So
He easily got that 100 grams in. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that meal.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so you guys, I'm very, very excited to share a burn story with you all today. This comes from Mia McGarity from Alpharetta, Georgia, and I want you guys to listen in to her story from her own words.
So what brings me back to burn is the community and the accountability. I think I've mentioned it before, but I got my big aha moment when my son had his first epileptic seizure. We thought he was having a stroke, and I was carrying him across a flat parking lot and got winded. And so that started me on my journey here at Burn with trying to get healthy again. And then when my health took its tank, and I had to stop coming to Burn for a little while, I still had everybody here who was reminding me to give myself grace and time to come back and give my body what it needed. And so since being back the last few months, just the amount of encouragement and friendship and love that I've received from the community here, whether it's my friends or the trainers or everybody that comes here, has kept me as a loyal Burn member.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is amazing. Mia, thank you for sharing your story. Listen, I want to just comment on Mia's story real quick, because what I picked up on that is that, you know, we all have this point in which we realize that health has to be a priority. You reach this one point in time where there's enough pain associated with a certain moment that signature from that negative emotion is so deep down the scale of negative emotion, the deepest negative emotion you could feel, right? Think about her carrying her son who had a seizure across a parking lot and feeling out of breath. Zoom into that moment and try to have empathy for Mia and feel how she might have felt as she is thinking in her head. Her body is physically becoming she's breathing heavier and heavier. She's thinking, I might pass out while my son's having a seizure here. I'm so out of shape. He might be in jeopardy because of my inability to physically get him somewhere. So wow, what a deep emotion that she had there, and that snapped her to action. And I just know that all of us have these moments like that. Morgan, yours was that time that you talk about it all the time. You talked about it last episode, I believe, too, where you looked in the mirror and you were this version of yourself that wasn't even you, and you were zooming in on a super ripped, very good looking physique, and critiquing yourself and just getting so emotionally distraught from that. And we've all, just had those moments. So, Bryce, have you had any of those moments?
I think for me, it started really connected to sports, where it was just, hey, I'm doing this for a specific goal that I have, and that was it. It was just, hey, this is what I want to go achieve, and so this is something that's going to help me get there. And then when I transitioned out of that world, it just became something that I'm going to keep that going. This was about reaching a goal, reaching a potential. The goals are changing, but this is going to continue for me. And I think that was the trigger moment for me, was to say, hey, here's something that I want. Here's what I want to do. Here's a big goal that I have. Here's something that's going to help me get there. It's going to be hard work, but there's nothing to do but do the work, right? And there's something special about those stories where people do connect the dots. And like I said, my story may be very different than some of the stories that we hear, but I'm sitting there watching that video smiling, because I'm thinking of all the different types of stories that we've heard like that. Like, we've even produced a video where it was kind of someone was lifting a med ball, and then it cuts to them lifting their kid, right? Mm-hmm. So people are kind of connecting the dots of, what does this mean to me in my life? But they've got to connect the dots, and then they also have to say, I'm going to go do something, right? And so I think that was kind of for me, it was intimidating getting in the weight room when you're 14 with, people who are bigger and stronger than you. It wasn't comfortable, but it was just, hey, this is going to help me get where I need to go. And I just smile when I see stories like that, where, people have that moment where they connect the dots. And then I also know that there was a moment after that where they had to just, it's not easy to just do the work after that, right? And so I just was sitting here watching that video, smiling, thinking of all, the different types of videos and stories that we've heard like that. And then what don't you see in that video is they showed up and they did the work, right? Even when it wasn't easy, or it was nervous to walk. They were nervous to walk through the doors.
Mm-hmm. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, just related to that, to her story alone, I mean, you can only imagine how scary that must be as your own child actually experiencing that, right? So similar to how, we used to deal with, we kind of talked about with the injuries and running out to them when, we'd have patients that would go down. Similar types of things where I'd be, managing multiple fields and, dealing with multiple events going on. Well, I get a call to go down to one field for an emergency. I'm up a quarter of a mile away, half mile away, whatever it is. I got to run down there, and I get down there and I'm like, I'm like winded at that point. And, it's like, okay, now I got to try to go do all of this. So there was always kind of that time where I was like, all right, I should probably get in a little bit better shape so I can, also do my job to take care of them, but I got to take care of myself as well. But I can't even imagine actually how that must be with your own child. But, real call to action is, to have that internal driver and that motivation to do it. And that's, it fuels your why, right? So that's, something important, something that you can always have in the back of your mind that's going to really show you, what are you fighting for? Why are you going every day? Why are you putting in the time and effort? And, it's for your family, for yourself, for what you need and what you want.
Morgan, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, I've never had that happen to me with my children, but I also can't imagine. So Mia, kudos to you for taking action when you felt that way, like in the moment, and said, okay, I have to start taking care of myself so I can take care of my kids. And I think that's a lot of, parents' motivation, but it takes a while to get there. It takes a while for us to give ourselves that permission. And sometimes it is those low moments in life. So I just think it's great that we have this community and the Alpharetta community that continues to bring her back and keep her there and hold her accountable and help her get through, her life journey.
Yeah. It's like when the pain of doing the effort itself, the pain that comes from that is less than the pain that you're going to feel if you don't. And that's what I think people mean when they say you can't want it more than somebody else wants it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And how bad do you want it is, the question. And sometimes it just takes us a while, years, sometimes to have the desire, but we don't run into the circumstances. We don't run into that one event that creates that pain that's deep enough, like Justin when he's out of breath wondering if he can save this girl that just tore her ACL, or Mia, wondering if she's going to be able to save her child who's having a seizure because of her physical. And that pain stays with you. So what is your story? Sometimes you have to think about it, and you have to actually go intentionally ask yourself the question, what moment in my life can I draw from that I've experienced a lot of pain? And that's an uncomfortable question to ask because we oftentimes don't want to relive those experiences. But the meaning of that experience is only as good as the associated meaning that you give it. You got to give it a meaning. And, or else you're going to be waiting for something to come along naturally. And it might be 5 or 10 years before you feel enough pain to actually move and change your ways. So we call it projection of pain. How do you go backwards? How do you use your memory to go back, grab an experience, reassociate a painful meaning to it, something that you're running away from that you never want to experience again? And how do you manufacture that pain, visualize that pain, think about it to the point where it's real enough to where you take the action today? That's the best form of motivation. Secondarily, it's looking forward and saying, what do I want? And what's the pain of not having it? But we haven't experienced it. We can visualize it, which is almost as real as an experience neurologically, but it's not the same. We can all attest to this, right? What you've already experienced is much more real than something that you've visualized.
Because it always goes back to like your perspective, right? The perspective that you look on things. And, like we've talked about before and had, the conversations, and with DG coming in and, having those talks with everybody too. It's, how are you going to utilize that event and that negative, trauma? And are you going to look at it and always see it as something negative? Or are you going to constructively utilize it in a way that you can actually fuel yourself towards, bettering yourself and getting away from, that negative connotation that it had?
Well, thank you, Mia, so much for sharing your story here on the podcast. And listen, if you would like to share your story with us, you can send a request or an inquiry or a video even, just like one that Mia sent in, and to podcast@burnbootcamp.com. Okay, podcast@burnbootcamp.com. And Chelsea will be right there. Okay, she'll be right there to communicate with you and to make sure that we get a video to display here during our podcast, during our member story section. So we look forward to seeing more of your submissions. We're moving on to David Duncan's question from Lake Norman, North Carolina. Is there a good cadence to take camp each week? Every day, every other day, 2 days on, 1 day off? What is the best? So David, great question. David, by the way, guys, was also in a focus meeting podcast. We'll link that in the show notes. Every week we do a focus meeting podcast. And we sat down in this very studio and we had a one-on-one discussion. And he got a takeaway to do pull-ups. You guys see the pull-up video? We did a pull-up video. It did pretty good. It had like 100 airplanes or shares on Insta.
Airplanes. I did not see it, but I can say I'm surprised this question's coming from my boy David, because I feel like I pass him coming out of the gym 8 days a week. So I'm like, I met him at an event we had at HQ, and then he joined Lake Norman. I feel like I've seen him every day since. So maybe that is, he's like, hey, should I be going every day?
Should I be going this much?
Am I doing this right?
Yeah. Let's each go around the room and we can talk about what we do and what we experience. But let me just start with some general comments. From a training perspective, if you're a brand new member and you've never worked out before, let's just start there. You're going to want to come to Burn 1 day, 2 day, 3 days a week, and just allow your body a couple days to recover in between. And this is if you've never worked out before, right? If you are used to working out, maybe you haven't worked out in 5 years, it's been 3 years, you've been off and on your whole life, you're going to want to start at 2 or 3 times a week and then work your way up. If you're somebody that's coming maybe like from a CrossFit or something where it's a little bit more intense, you can step in 4 to 6 times a week. Eventually, what we program and design the protocol for is so that you can come all 6 days a week. We have, generally speaking, although it fluctuates a little bit, we have 3 conditioning days, 3 strength days. Oftentimes we'll go to 4 strength days because strength is something that we've believed in before it was cool to strength train. Hypertrophy has been at the center of our programming really since day one. And so when you have your splits like that, what happens is you can have an upper body strength one day on a Monday, come back, do an athletic conditioning day where you don't touch your upper body at all, giving your upper body time to recover. Come back Wednesday, and then you're going to maybe do a lower body strength training, right? Athletic conditioning. You might have some tender ankles and things like that, but that's mostly a anaerobic threshold, push your conditioning day. Come back, do some more heavy strength training on Wednesday. You could have a core conditioning day on Thursday where you come in and now you're just working on core, staying away from upper and lower body. And then maybe round out the week with an arm day, isolating the shoulders, the triceps, the biceps, and finish with a Metcon on a Saturday. So it's designed to give your body rest periods, especially on the strength days. You want about 48 to 72 hours, depending on the person, before you retrain that muscle group. And so that's how we design it, David. So with all of that being said, starting at 1 is a great place to start. Work your way up over time to 6. That would be, generally speaking, my advice. I am personally 4 or 5 times a week, whether it's at the gym at Lake Norman, another gym on the road as we travel, or Burn on Demand. And I always do the live full 45-minute games price.
I was waiting for that. I was just 10 minutes delayed, but...
So yeah, that's my opinion. And that's really, generally speaking, what our burn trainers will preach out there. And then the real answer is it depends on a lot of other variables. And that's why we partner with over 2,000 other professionals in Burn Nation to bring you, prescriptive, specific advice catered to your lifestyle and your goals and your desires. Let's go, Justin, Bryce, Morgan. I want to hear from you guys. Answer David's question.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head with it depends. That's like the worst answer that you could have because nobody likes to hear that because it's like, okay, well, I want something a little bit more concrete. But it's, it's where you're at, what your goals are, where you're at in your journey. If you're, like Devin said, if you're just starting off or if you're a veteran that's there and you've been doing this for a long time, like maybe you can accommodate a little bit more frequency. But I think that a lot of it comes to, we all have busy lifestyles. So what are you able to actually fit in within your day-to-day? Does your work schedule, family life, does that allow for you to have, to be there 6 days a week? If you can only get in 4 days a week in gym and then, you got to supplement a couple, on the app, that's a good alternative too. But it's, if you're coming in and you do camp one day and the next day it just crushed you. And you're waking up the next morning going, I'm super sore. I might have overdid a little bit. I went a little too hard. I probably should have backed off. Those type of situations, it's kind of, okay, listen to your body, right? So if you're coming in, you're a little bit sore because you're a little bit deconditioned, then take that time off or you can do an alternative or you can mod down on a lot of things. Like don't be afraid to choose that as an alternative as well, where you can still be active. You can still go to camp, but take advantage of those mods when you can. If you're a little bit sore, okay, I'm just going to mod down on this.
I do that all the time. by the way, just so everybody knows, like probably once a workout.
That was actually super reassuring.
I don't ever. When I do the quick camps, especially, I never do that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. No,
Yeah.
That was like one of the first camps I took with Devin. I was like, man, he's doing something a little bit different over there. I'm like, okay, I feel like I've got a little bit of freedom to do that too. That was the green light.
Well, the different thing that he was doing was he going to grab his phone and film it and go super hard for 20 seconds and then take 2 minutes off? Or was that what you were seeing, or was it something different?
85 rep snatches, by the way, on video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just got to start getting some 10-minute video
2 minutes.
clips from you, instead of like 2 minutes. That's solid.
Yeah. Quickly, more thoughts on this?
Oh, well, we skipped Bryce, but.
Maybe because I was giving him a hard time. He's just like,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we've all kind of said the answer that I would go with. I encourage daily movement. So if that means coming every day, 6 days a week, because you've built that into your schedule and you thrive off routine, then stick to that and know that when you walk into those doors and you're feeling a little sore, you can modify. You can have that conversation with your trainer. Or if, you want to build in some walk days or some run days or a yoga day, that's great too. But for not just the physical health, but the mental benefits as well, I encourage daily movement. And however that works for you, I think is, again, based on your schedule, your lifestyle, and your desires.
Yeah, so I love that question. Thank you, David. Appreciate you very much. Podcast@burnbootcamp.com if you'd like to submit your question and get it featured here on the podcast. And we appreciate it. Let's talk about the food pyramid. And I want to talk about the food pyramid for a reason, the history of it and where it's at now. The reason is because I don't think there is a secret out there that, our country, America, we are as obese as we've ever been.
And sick.
And this is not my opinion. This is facts. We're doing everything that we can here at Burn Nation to ignite a global health transformation and to put a dent into these numbers. We're not going to do it alone. No company's going to do it alone. It's going to take cooperation from corporations, government, World Health Organizations. It's going to take a whole globe in order to turn around this negative trajectory that we have with being overweight, with being obese, and with the sicknesses that are associated. So, we got to talk just a little bit about how did we get here. I think that's a good topic to discuss today, and we'll really zero into the food pyramid, because I think as I do my own research, my observations say that the food pyramid that was made in the early 90s is in a strong correlation with the ramp up in obesity. Food manufacturing as well, that started much sooner than the early 90s. But if you were to talk about one thing, what contributed to this number of obesity in America that sits almost at, overweight is at like 70%? Now, to caveat, that generally speaking is measured by body mass index, and body mass index is not a great measurement of true health. All it is a height versus weight division calculation, okay? So we're not going to lean into that, but what we are going to assume is that although the variables might not be correct, the variables that are being measured are consistent. And so you see, let's just say I have a 10-pound weight in my hand and I step on the scale. I'm 200 pounds, but I'm 210 pounds. Well, if I keep that 10-pound weight in my hand, although it's not my true weight, but I lose weight, it should also go down, right? You follow me? So same thing here. And so I want to get to the bottom of the food pyramid. I want to talk about and I'll give everybody a quick background. How about that? And then we'll talk about where we're at now and just everybody's thoughts around this. I know we're looking at an article right now. It is uabmedicine.org, okay? So we're pulling this article up for those of you that are watching the podcast, and you can scroll through this article. We're going to talk about this at the end, but let me give you a quick little recap here. So the food pyramid of the early 90s, by all regards, this isn't a secret, have been deemed flawed due to the fact that the largest food group people should be consuming in that food pyramid were grains. Now, if you go in and you research this, you see this is where big food really starts to manipulate government policy and health regulation by putting grains, carbs, cereals, cookies, cakes, you name it, at the very bottom foundation of the food pyramid. And, speculatory here, but why do you do that? Like, why would you do that if it wasn't to sell more food, to get more profit? I don't understand how the science would ever point to that. And so it's been largely debunked that food pyramid it's now by, like I said, all registered dietitians, the scientific community. It's been deemed flawed, changed, et cetera. Like, it's completely different now. But you have to go back to the 90s, and you have to go back to, imagine your kids right now. Okay, so I was an 87 baby. When were you born?
88.
88. So we're all like mid-30s. Okay, and Morgan's 87. I'm 1 month older than Morgan. So we're all 87. So we grew up our whole lives with the idea that the food pyramid, the most nutritious foods, the most fundamental foundational foods are cereals, right? Refined, sugary cereals. And we all know what refined sugary cereals and sugar in general and excess sodium, sugar, flour does to inflammation in our body and the pathological effects biologically from that. Okay, so then you have to ask yourself the question, is this correlated? This food pyramid that stood strong for so long, is it correlated? Or maybe not, that's not even the best question. How strongly is it correlated to obesity in America? And the registered dietitian Barbara Roberts in this article talks about how the food pyramid is outdated and it's inaccurate because there's not enough focus on the need for protein. So now you guys are hearing protein and strength training, protein and strength training, protein and strength training. And this is what it should have been all along, right? The bottom of the food pyramid, the most fundamental macronutrient, the fundamental food, protein. So the pyramid shows that fat should be avoided also. And there are definitely, as we all know, great fats that people should be eating that are essential to overall health. So she talks about that even if you ate within your calorie limit based on the food pyramid, there are still many vitamins and minerals and fibers your body is missing out on. And so for all these reasons, the USDA switched its focus to My Plate, which is where this article comes back in. And we're going to make some comments on it here. Justin, I'll start with you. The My Plate graph, which gives us more of a balance of each of the different food groups instead of so much emphasis on grains. So my question for everybody is, the USDA is now saying this. Is this right? Because back in the early 90s, put yourself in the shoes of 35-year-olds in the early 90s who were in our position talking about health and fitness. They're probably leaning on the government mostly at that time to tell them what's right versus what's wrong. And so now we have this USDA, this body, this organization that is, has My Plate graph that we're supposed to listen to. Should we listen to it? Should we listen to it, Justin?
I mean, you got to think too that it's interesting that the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, is coming out with this, right? And this is, and what was the fundamental, base of the pyramid? Grains, right? So it's interesting that was something that was pushed for so long. But I don't know if they've really gotten away from it, even though they've transitioned over to My Plate. I think that some ways, like you said, growing up, what I really remember is on the back of a cereal box, seeing the pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. And that was probably where I would see, okay, and this, it's kind of just ingraining that type of, that focus on eat those, eat those, eat those.
Wonder who is funding all those studies to get to that food pyramid.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, so at least at that point, I will say with the old pyramid, at least it gave you some suggestions of what types of foods to get. I think now where they've transitioned over to the My Plate, where they just show it as these, 4 different quadrants and a cup of milk, that it just shows, proteins, fruits, vegetables, and grains, and it just says this is how much you should portion out. But it doesn't give you any sort of idea of what really you should put into there. So you can go on and look on the resources on there, and it gives you more information. But I still think that there is a gap on this that, you could, depending on what you're putting on there, it doesn't mean it's a really healthy meal. Doesn't mean that you're actually going to get what you need out of that meal from a macro standpoint. I think that there needs to be more emphasis on the types of foods that you need, the quality types of foods that you need in order to get, to that healthy goals that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Well, I think we touched on it too, of just, saying, hey, you used to be on the back of the cereal box, and I wonder who's funding this, right? I mean, obviously there's the term called trust but verify, right? And so you hear that all the time, and you got to kind of make your mind up, where am I going to place my trust? But even if you do decide to trust something, the verification is important. And really, for me, what it looks like here is I'm trying to find a diet that is the best for me, for my goals and how I want to feel, and how, where I want my health to be. So verify is, let's say I go and I use this resource and I'm using it diligently and I'm a couple months in. Well, how do I feel? Right? Like, so I think that's a key part of these types of things is, at the end of the day, we're going to be our best. We're going to understand how this is helping us the most, right? I mean, that's a good starting point. It's the same thing when we just talked about how many camps a day. It's like, well, it depends, right? So I'm seeking to find a diet that fits what I'm looking for. And then I'm going to be a great person to say, is what I'm doing helping me get closer to that? And so what I do love about this new structure is just the simplicity. So I went and got a program written for me, a strength training program many years ago when I was still playing baseball. And they also gave me some nutrition advice. And they just said, look, what I want you to picture is, if you have a plate and you sit down, I want you to picture 2 plates or 2 fists of protein, kind of takes up half of the plate. Then 1 fist is something that's like grain, like quinoa, rice, something like that. And then the other fist is vegetables. And then just make good choices within those 3 categories, right? So it wasn't necessarily my plate, but it was a tool that was given to me that was simple enough that I could then go take that and make decisions within it to reach my goals. And so I think that's what's important when we're talking about America. You have 300 million people. It's almost like a funnel, right? You have 300 million people, then you have a certain amount of people that this is something they need to actively engage in and work on, right? Then they have to go seek the resource. Then the people who seek the resource have to actually be able to move to the next step of the funnel where it helps them. And so there's a certain balance of simplicity that's important there. And I know Devin's been telling me that for 6.5 years. He's like, hey, come up with your idea, then present it to me, and then go back to the drawing board 10 times until it's actually doesn't seem like it's coming from your brain, because it's not simple enough. So I think that is when I see that chart, that's what I like, moving from the food pyramid to even the visual, right? You have to make decisions within that, but everyone can picture a dinner plate. And I think that's even a big step forward. Morg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do definitely like the plate over the pyramid, but I just don't trust the government to tell me what's best for my body. I think there's ulterior, well, you know the word I'm trying to yeah. There's secondary motives, okay? I don't know why I can't say that word right now, but I think there's a lot of corruption in these industries. And, dairy, I don't even think dairy belongs on my plate. I don't think adults need to be consuming dairy. I don't even think children need to be consuming dairy. As far as it goes with like cow's milk, I never gave it to my kids. They got calcium through other ways. And so, but of course the government's not going to want to push that, because then all the dairy farmers and all the people that are supporting, different politicians and government, agencies, they're not going to get their money for that. So I don't want to go into it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. However, I've learned a lot over the last 10 years about just not taking one thing verbatim. And I think that's really challenging for humans and even parents to navigate, because they are relying on a trustworthy source to say, what should I be eating? But I don't even think you can do that these days, because you never know what the motives are behind it. And so you really just have to take multiple sources and then feel like you're empowered enough to make the best decision for you. So I wouldn't trust one source verbatim. I would make sure I'm getting secondary opinions, third opinions, and then I'm saying, okay, what's best for me and my family?
Yeah, and listen, we don't have to nowadays. We don't have to just have opinions. We have what's called third-party, peer-revised medical studies. These are where These are independent studies. They're not corporate sponsored studies. There's a distinct difference. And you can go out and find studies, independent studies that talk about dairy. And I'll just name a few of them in case you guys are interested, okay? One that covers hormones and cancer risk, an association with dairy. By the way, most of these are not studying dairy. That's too generic of a term. They're studying lactose. It's lactose that is, as you read through these studies, that's the common thread is and it's always lactose in high consumptions. It's never moderate consumptions of whey protein, right? It's just to be clear, because we have to be specific, because it's easy for somebody to get on the internet and go, dairy's terrible for you because the hormones and cancer risk study done by the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition suggests that dairy's terrible. What you're not saying is that it didn't say that, it said lactose.
Yeah, well, I was referring to the cup of milk that was on the plate.
For sure.
So more specifically, cow's milk.
There's even different processing behind dairy. So when you go into different countries, right? There's also you can have fresher. Is it straight from the cow? Then what happens from there? And I know that there's even differences in America with how, by the time it makes it to your cup next to your plate, right? It's a little bit different than it may be in other countries. So even just something as simple as that, you can go down many different rabbit holes to say this dairy or that dairy. There's some distinctions to make.
I'm going to give two more because I said I'd give two more. So there's a prostate cancer risk study done by the Journal of Nutrition in 2014 that found an increased risk of prostate cancer in men who consume large amounts of dairy, particularly milk. The China study 2006 is a plant-based study diet. It's often cited by advocates of plant-based diets. It suggests high consumption of animal-based foods, including dairy, is associated with higher rates of cancer and heart disease.
But then, we can also have an independent study that says the exact opposite, which is, again, the challenge that we all have to face. Is who do we trust? Who do we listen to? Which article do we turn to? Because there's a yin to the yang for everything that's out there. So that's frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
You wish you had that source of truth that we're looking out for your best interests and not looking out for the dollar first. But I just don't think that that's what's happening in America. So do your research and then you got to choose, and then you got to say, how does this food make my body feel? Because that's the other component to it. How does dairy make you feel? How does eating a lot of carbs make you feel? How does red meat versus white meat make you feel? Because I know I feel better when I eat red meat versus chicken. Mm-hmm. But that's maybe different than Devin.
Yeah, so, I eat cheese.
Yeah, and I eat cheese
day.
too. And I've started to give cheese to our children. They've had ice cream. I'm not saying I'm anti all dairy, but
it's they wanted it's in moderation,
but,
right?
Yeah, but most pediatricians will be like, all right, it's been 1 year. Now you can wean off breastfeeding, or now you can wean off formula and you can give your kid cow's milk. And I was like, nope, we're not going to do that. So we're actually we don't need another animal's, milk the same way that people think that we do.
And that's what they say too, is that, technically to be able to actually digest milk, we've had genetic mutations that have allowed us to actually digest, dairy the way that we do after the age of, say 1 year. Mm-hmm. So is that something to be said, where you actually look back and you're saying, okay, is there a reason that we weren't intended to actually be able to process that?
Yeah.
But then over time, because we've had so much of it and because of that being a primary component of our diets, that now we've actually changed our DNA to allow us to do so. Mm-hmm. Is it something that's healthy? Is it something that's important? It depends, right?
Yeah.
And it's healthy to have these conversations, and we're going to have them because I think it's very important to bring these things out and to have a open discussion where you get to hear from both sides. You see this most in politics. Nobody else wants to hear the other side's opinion in health and fitness and what we should consume and what we shouldn't consume. It's the same kind of pick a team mentality. You've heard me in the past talk about it's like war. It's like a religion of diets, a religion of nutrition philosophies, all at war with each other to find out who's the best. So everybody's concerned with being right rather than doing right. And so, listen, I want to talk to people on the podcast that are pro-dairy. I want to talk to people that are absolutely anti-dairy. And the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, like with everything always. Mm-hmm. But you need to hear both sides of it. And so, I just want to condition the podcast listeners just to kind of brace and get in your seats, because we're going to have these conversations, and we hope that you crave it. And I certainly can't find another place that talks about things from a neutral, objective perspective like we want to here. So hang with us, and we'll do our very, very best to do that for you guys in this industry. So Morg, we're going to go. I want to do one last member question, okay? And I want to go quick. All right. And I want to start with you. Abby from Columbus, Ohio asks, what should I look for in a good multivitamin? Are there certain vitamins that are a must?
Yeah, well, I definitely don't want to say which vitamin is a must, because I think there's a lot of really great options out there. But I have been, Devin and I used to sell Shackley, which is an MLM. We don't anymore, but I learned a lot about vitamins and supplements in that business early on. The reason we got into that was because we couldn't find what we were looking for on the market as far as quality. And we were looking for something to put our name behind early on in Burn Boot Camp before we started creating our own supplements. So I've been like a 12 to 13 years on Shackley's vitamins called Vitalizer. And it's what Devin's on as well. So I haven't explored a ton of other things out there. But what I do know is that you don't want synthetic vitamins. You want whole food vitamins because they're going to help your body digest better. You want to make sure it's from a reputable source that isn't, just selling it cheap. So most of the things you find on Amazon or even at your grocery store are not going to be very good quality. If you're going to decide to take a multivitamin, you want to make sure you're investing in something that's going to even help your body other than just taking something and wasting your money. So, Shackley's been something that we've used. Also, AG1 Greens is what I've also used, which is more of a powdered greens, but it has multivitamins in it, and it's making sure I'm getting those micronutrients. So those are the two things that I've personally used, and I feel good about those companies and that the source and the quality is superior.
I mean, there's some anecdotal evidence behind that too, because Devin's on that Shackley strip in the greens, it's sickness is in your head. So, I mean, I think it's either combo of his mental game and the vitamins, or I don't know, maybe it is one or the other, but there's something there. So.
Well, we now have evidence that your thoughts can downregulate your genes.
Okay.
He's just that mental warrior over there.
Thoughts can make you sick. Yeah. So if thoughts can make you sick, then thoughts should also be able to heal you. Yeah.
I think there's restrictions to
that. I said downgrade your genes.
Yeah.
Or upgrade.
Yeah, this can be a whole nother podcast, but we can get into his most
after, right?
His most recent one is when I was car sick. He said, I don't think that's a thing. I think you're thinking that's a thing, and I think he's just pushing my buttons at this point. I actually don't know. I don't know where he truly lands on it, but
I'd rather remain in mystery on that one.
Well, for me, I know Devin Klein, the fitness guy, is going to probably touch on the actual science behind the vitamins. But I know really all I can add here is I've done hey, what vitamins? What am I going to do? I'm really big into this. And then as simple as it seems to just take them every day, that breaks down for me. So really all I can add here is hey, once you listen to these three on finding the right vitamins, I think having a simple routine, like what place, what time of day, can you be consistent? And I've heard Devin say, look, I've even created a supplement cabinet so everything's in one place to make it convenient. And as many people out there that might be listening to me say, I can't just take a couple pills one time a day, that I know there's also people out there that are I feel you on that. And so getting into a good what's going to set you up for success to be, hey, when I do this, I take my vitamins and I take them consistently. So it's a work in progress for me.
Yeah, and I think that's something too that, for the most part, I mean, for anything that's supplement-wise, it's a supplement. You're supplementing what you should be able to get from your, dietary intake of food, right? So ideally, yes, in a perfect world, we'd like to get all of our nutrients and vitamins from whole food sources with, dense nutrient-based foods, but, we have busy lives, things just come up. We're not able to do that. It's not convenient. So if you have those gaps in your, in your diet and you feel like you do have a trusted source who is providing these vitamins, and that if you're not sure about that, like Morgan had touched on too, it's got to be from a reliable company. If you're not sure about what you're seeing on Amazon, is it third-party tested? Is it, is it actually, the FDA poorly regulates supplements in general. So that's the scary part, where if you don't know where it's coming from, and what are you putting into your body? So biggest thing though is, you got to make sure that you're taking in, what you're taking in, and there is a reason that you're doing it, right? The intent is there, not that you're just shoving, a bunch of pills down your throat just because you think that's going to make you healthy one day, or because, that's your main, motor to be able to say, hey, this is what's going to make me better in the gym, or, prevent me from having this, the flu, that type of thing. There has to be the reason that you're coming in, but also too, be sure that you're seeing a doctor annually to get physical. So in case you're overdoing it, that you're not also, there are upper limits to having some of these vitamins coming in, especially those, fat soluble vitamins, where we don't want to push that toxicity level. That's something to always consider too. Make sure that you're doing it in the best interest of your health and not overdoing it too.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Tony, can you pull up Suja, Suja, Suja Uber Greens? So Morgan covered most of my micronutrient philosophy herself, because we share the same one. The only difference is Morgan prefers the AG1 greens, which are powdered greens, and she likes to mix those up. Go scroll down. That one right there. See the
Uber Greens.
Yep. You see the one on the left of the screen, Uber Greens. Can you zoom in on that, Tony, so everybody can just see exactly what I'm talking about there? Yeah, that one. I buy these at the grocery store in, what are they, half gallons, Morg?
Mm-hmm.
And basically every morning we'll just pick one up and chug right from the bottle. I count 8 gulps. That's about 8 ounces, I think. And I go through like 1.5 a week, I would say. And then if I'm on the road, I grab these little bottles that you're seeing here. And, it's cold press. It's only 5 grams of sugar per bottle from natural sugar. And it just gets all of your green intake. Now, people will say juicing takes away fiber, blah, blah, blah. Sure, it does. But my diet around that is really good. That's just a supplement to my diet to make sure that I'm getting my greens in. And, Shackley Vitalizer, the men's version. There's men's and there's women's. And it has all your vitamins, all your minerals, and it has
a probiotic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And fat and fish oil.
Yep.
Yep.
I took it during my pregnancy, so that was like it was my prenatal, postnatal, and then just always my multivitamin. So we got into the routine, and that's what it's all about. Like Bryce said, just getting the right thing, and then finding the routine that works best for you.
Okay, you guys, that's good for today. Thank you so much for this conversation. We hope that you guys really enjoyed it. Leave us a review on Apple. We love that all your reviews land on Apple. I want to see that number growing. If you're having fun here with us on the podcast, if you're in Burn Nation and you're listening to this, share this. Share this with a Burn sister or Burn brother. If you're a trainer, share this with your members in your cool down and promo. If you're a franchise partner and you're listening in, let everybody know, okay? And if you guys want to be on the podcast, let's go. Podcast@burnbootcamp.com. We're constantly looking for people from Burn Nation to come on in and contribute. Members share your story. There is the place you can do it. Podcast@burnbootcamp.com. Podcast@burnbootcamp.com. Sound good?
All right.
Yes.
All right, everybody, we'll take it out like we always do. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.
Bye, guys.